Hello, everybody, and welcome to class today. It's Monday, April 20th, and today we're going to be starting our week-long section on energy, sustainability, and energy systems. So just our little guide that we always have on here. Today you're going to be watching this video and then a short little video that's a really cool National Geographic produced video showing us how Germany has managed to transfer 40% of their energy to renewables and their plan to become zero emissions in the future. And then to respond, you just have the one assessment. Okay, so before we get started with that, I want to share the sustainability news. I forgot to do that on Wednesday of last week, so I have two here. This was Cali's, and this is a really interesting one called Solar Roadways. And you can check out their site. It looks like they have a cool video there, Solar Frickin' Roadways. But I think this is a fascinating technology where they're producing materials that can be used for roads that are made out of glass, it says down there, specially formulated tempered glass. And they contain heating elements, so prevent snow and ice accumulation. They're modular, so you can like take pieces out of one place and fit them back in another place. And they run on solar panels, so they collect their own energy, so they don't require power. So essentially, you might say, like, why are they not using these already? Because it's very, very expensive to install them. This company is new. But obviously, over time, it pays back. So you spend a lot to invest in them, and then you get that money back and reduce maintenance costs, plowing costs, etc. over time. So check this out. It's a cool innovation. And here's another one. This one was Eileen's sustainability news, and she posted this article about a new company in the UK that has found a way to heat greenhouses using the heat generated by water treatment plants treating sewage. So the sewage of the greenhouses don't touch, there's no sewage on the plants, but the heat generated by treating the sewage heats the greenhouses. So instead of heating the greenhouses with fossil fuels, they're heated with this like waste byproduct of treating water. So it's really cool, and just links into what we were talking about last week with there's no reason why you can't have year-round vegetable production in cold climates. You can with greenhouse systems, and those greenhouse systems can be sustainable, not run on fossil fuels. So this one says that, they have 2 new locations, and they're creating 360 permanent new jobs running the greenhouses. And the greenhouses will produce 12% of the whole country's tomatoes with a 75% reduction in carbon footprint. So very cool. We need something like this in the North Country. We get jobs and we get local food source. Okay, so before we get into the meat of what we're going to talk about today, I just want to remind you guys that your sustainability or technology or initiative idea is due today. So apologies for the couple people who already tried to hand theirs in, Shayna and Abby. I hadn't had something up already on Moodle for it, but I did just put something up on Moodle. So if you haven't handed yours in yet, make sure you do it on Moodle. You just need a 1-sentence description of your idea. And I made a whole video about this the other day, so check out that video. And you should sign up for a slot to do your presentation, which is also on Moodle. Okay, so if you have any questions about this, send me an email and I'll provide you feedback about your ideas as soon as I can. Okay, so let's get started talking about energy. So our plan for energy is that today I'm going to give you like a crash course in energy and who's using fossil fuels, who's using renewables. And then on Wednesday, we're going to talk about the reading on energy democracies. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about what it means to have a decentralized energy system. Okay, so let's take a look at this first. Let's go up to the global level. Who uses the most energy? So this is energy consumption per capita, per person. And you can see that the US is far and above everybody else, right? We're way above everybody else in the world. There's the world average down there, right above 50 gigajoules. So we use more energy per person than anyone else in the entire world. But that doesn't mean we use more energy total, because we only have 350 million people here, right? And China, which has a much larger population, I'm actually not sure, but I want to say 1.7 or 1.8 billion is the population of China. China uses more energy than any other single country on earth, and they surpassed the United States around 2010. So till 2010, the US used both the most energy per capita and the most total energy of anyone in the world. But as other economies around the world are developing, people are striving for affluence and Western lifestyles, and they are using more energy as well. So this graphic only shows from 2015. China had already passed the US. China is using 23% of the primary energy consumption worldwide. And you can see how that splits up among the rest of the world. But we are actually decreasing, and that's largely because our population isn't increasing. Population in other sectors of the world is increasing, and so is their energy consumption. So what is this energy that we're consuming? Where is it coming from? Well, we all know that a lot of it is coming from fossil fuels. So most of you in class will already be familiar with the fossil fuels, but I just want to do a quick rundown so you guys understand, what do we mean when we say fossil fuels? There's 3 fossil fuels. Coal, that's the most abundant one. It's the dirtiest one. It burns the dirtiest. It releases the most carbon into the atmosphere when burned, more than the other 2 fossil fuels. And its deposits are unequally distributed worldwide. So some countries have way more coal than other countries. The second one is oil. Definitely that one comes to mind when you think fossil fuels. It's cleaner than coal, cleaner burning. It's more versatile, right? We can transform it into all kinds of different fuels for all kinds of different vehicles or to make electricity. And just like coal, its deposits are unequally distributed worldwide. So I just put this quick graphic in here to show you like everything that we use oil for. So what do we use? Basically coal, we just put that in a coal-fired power plant. We make electricity. We don't heat our houses with coal anymore, and we don't have like vehicles that run on coal. We used to have trains that ran on coal, right? But what do we use oil for? Fuel for almost every method of transport. So you can see on here, like the crude oil comes in. This looks like molasses. It comes into the pipeline. It goes through the refinery. And like one of the least refined oil is fuel oil for ships and home heating systems. So if your house is heated by oil rather than gas, it's pretty unrefined oil. Then a little bit more refined is diesel. Then a little bit more refined is jet engine fuel. Then a little bit more refined is naphtha, which is the basis for like a lot of chemicals, including plastics that are based on petroleum. And then the most refined is gasoline for cars. So if you have a non-diesel engine. And then what comes off at the top, refinery gas, that comes out as gas that you can also use as a fuel. So if you see one thing all these things have in common, mostly this one, this one, this one, and this one, they're transportation fuels. So we use oil largely for transportation, although also as a basis for a lot of products that we produce and to heat homes. So the last one on here is gas. The third fossil fuel is gas. Gas comes off of when you refine oil. That's what I put in that red box up there, but you can also collect gas directly out of the ground, natural gas, right? Now, up in this region, most homes are now heated with natural gas. And my home, for example, used to be heated with oil many years ago, but now is heated with natural gas. Natural gas is the cleanest burning fossil fuel. It's cleaner than coal or oil. It's harder to transport, right? It's a gas. You get a hole in your transportation container, it's gone. Just lost all your money. But it's safer, so it'll just vaporize, right? Versus coal or oil, which will contaminate the local area. So those are the three fossil fuels: coal, oil, and gas. Now, and gas is also distributed unequally worldwide. So before we go to the major renewable energy sources, I just wanted to mention, why do I show this part about it being unequally distributed worldwide? Because I want you to think about that in contrast to the renewable energy sources. So how much global conflict over the last 200 years has been caused by competing for fossil fuels? So think about that. And then think about if you had a fuel that was available to everybody, regardless of location. How much global conflict would that reduce? So some renewable energy sources do have that property that they're equally available to everyone. Others do not. Nuclear is not completely renewable, right? Uranium is not renewable, but we do have a fair amount of it. It's rare, and it's also distributed unequally worldwide. But the carbon impact of nuclear power plants is way, 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 way lower than any fossil fuels. So it's preferable in many ways to fossil fuels. Hydropower, like putting up a dam and then generating electricity through the dam, that's available almost globally, right? Everywhere has rivers. Now, there's going to be some deserts where hydropower isn't available, but that's an option that's available almost everywhere. Here's one that people are a little less familiar with, maybe: geothermal. Geothermal renewable energy basically is tapping into the heat deep underground, under like the Earth's crust, to tap into the hotter central core. But it's not in the core at all of the Earth, right? It's only going down a little bit. And actually, geothermal only really works where the hotter part of the Earth's core interior is closer to the surface. So where the Earth's crust is very thin. And one of those places you may have heard is Iceland, right? Iceland is the only country that has 100% renewable energy, and that's almost all from geothermal. It's not as easy to use everywhere, but it's available in many places. Wind and solar, definitely available almost everywhere. As you can imagine, things like solar are going to work better in a desert than in the North Country, or at least be more efficient, right? But that doesn't mean they don't work in places like the North Country. We have several large-scale solar farms going in this area in the next couple of years. So those are accessible worldwide, right? And then the last one is biomass. So burning anything that was once alive or part of something that was alive. And you can see in that little graphic what that means. So why is that renewable? Because those things grow back. They grow back. Now, certainly this is a renewable source you can consume faster than it grows back. So if you use all your trees for firewood with the idea that it's a renewable resource, you made a mistake, right? You have to pace yourself with this renewable resource. Okay, so where does our energy come from? We know that it comes from fossil fuels and renewables, but what's the balance? Well, here's a profile of the United States. 80% of our energy in the US comes from fossil fuels. You can see that on that little pie chart. So petroleum, natural gas, and coal. Petroleum is oil, right? So coal, oil, and gas is 80% of our energy. Then we have 9% from nuclear power, and then we have 11% from renewable energy. And the vast majority of that is from hydroelectric and biofuels and wind, right? Biomass, excuse me. So hydroelectric, if you look around up where we live here, you can see how that's a real powerhouse, right? We have tons of hydroelectric dams in our region, and it's part of what makes our electricity so cheap here. Well, that's true in many places around the United States. So we're doing well with some parts of renewable energy, but there's certainly a lot left that we could be exploiting to reduce our fossil fuel dependence from 80% to much lower. And some countries around the world have already done this or are moving towards doing this. So I'm going to show you a couple of those countries. One of these, quite famously, is Germany. This is a similar pie chart showing the energy sources in German power production last year, 2019. So just to clarify, this was from 2018. So in 2019, Germany used 40% renewables. Remember, the US used 11, 40% renewables. Now, most of the rest of their energy is coming from coal. Lignite is a soft coal. So like it says hard coal, 9.4%, lignite, 18.8%. That's coal too. So basically they have 27% of their energy is from coal, which is the dirtiest fossil fuel. They are working on phasing out those coal mines. And so as you'll see in the short video that I posted for you to watch, Germany started this really ambitious energy plan in which they plan to, by 2050, phase out all coal plants in the country and replace them with renewable energy. So why is the US not doing something similar? Germany is a rich, developed country, right? So maybe they're one of the top 4 economies in the world. So are we. So maybe you're thinking, well, maybe they have more money than us. How can they do it? You don't need more money than us to do it. Here's another country that also has almost 100% renewable energy. This is Costa Rica. If you don't know where Costa Rica is, there's a little map there. It's in Central America, just above Panama, just south of Nicaragua. Now, Costa Rica is where I did my PhD research, so I know this country well. I lived there for a couple of years. And Costa Rica, it's the wealthiest country in Central America after Mexico, but it is by no means wealthy compared to United States standards. And yet, their government has managed to set up a structure where they, over the years, have transferred all of their energy, almost 100%, to, you can see there, 99.06% to renewables. Much of this is from hydroelectric, right? That's agua. Viento is wind turbines, you can see on there, and that's quite a bit as well. Then they have geothermal, biomass, and sun. So this is this is 2017, as you can see down there. And when I was living down there, I actually worked for a while on a consulting project on a farm where the farmers were looking to make additional income by allowing a wind turbine farm to put up turbines on their farm. And my role there was to do the ecological impact assessment, essentially, and look at how much their wind turbines would affect birds, bats, and other wildlife there. And basically my assessment was, this will be fine. You have to move a couple things a little bit. And they did it. So basically the point is, you don't have to be as wealthy as Germany or the United States to transition to renewable fuels. Of course, there are costs to any transition, but we are going to pay those costs sooner or later. And this slide emphasizes that point. So this graphic is showing you years of fossil fuel reserves left. So this is from the report done by BP, British Petroleum, right? A big oil company. And so it's not like angled towards renewable energy producers or anything. And what they estimate is that we have 50 years of oil left. And this report was done in 2016. So 46 years of oil left. Natural gas, that would be 48 years left. And coal, we have quite a long time, more than 100 years left. So you remember we learned way back when we were in the beginning, when we were looking at the big picture, that we're going to run out of fossil fuels. And there's a certain point where even if some people are saying, well, there's still fuel in the ground, there's still fuel in the ground, at some point the cost of extracting that fuel becomes higher than the market price. It's hard to do. The cost of extracting it exceeds the price people will pay for it. And so at that point, it really doesn't matter if there's more fuel in the ground, because it's not worth it. There's no profit in extracting it. And we know that the oil and gas companies work on profit, right? So basically what I want you to take away from this slide is we don't have a very long time. You can consider these generous estimates. They're put out by an oil company. We don't have a long time left before we run out of fossil fuels. a country like the United States that is operating on 80% fossil fuels is in for some serious growing pains if we don't start transitioning soon. Because we will transition, right? So just before I switch to COVID-19 and its impacts on energy, I just want to say one more thing about sustainable energy. So we're going to talk in the next class about how sustainable energy doesn't mean everyone loses their job at all. Sustainable energy is projected to increase the number of jobs. It's a shift in jobs, right? So people working in the fossil fuel industry are going to have to shift their jobs. And that's going to cause a lot of difficulty and strife. But the government, well, okay, we're going into the realm of my opinion, so skip that. We'll stick to the facts. Okay, so will COVID-19 push us to change? So you probably hear a lot of this in the news now, like what are the permanent changes of COVID-19 going to be? Let's think about for a minute what they might be for energy use. We know that we're using less energy. In the United States, we hit a 16-year low in March. Now, this is just New York City, which is the global epicenter of coronavirus, right? And you can see what this is showing is in gray, it's the 5-year range of electricity demand. The blue is 2019, the pattern last year, and the pink is 2020. So you can see that it's tracking days since February 1. It's tracking lower and lower and lower. And this is in large part because huge sectors, yes, everyone's at home using their electricity, but huge sectors of the city, businesses, grocery stores, all different kinds of places that are open fewer hours or not open at all are reducing the electricity demand. There has also been a reduction in the demand for oil. Now this graphic, what it's showing you is global oil demand growth 2011 to 2025. And you can see that the light blue, it's like that already happened. We know what the demand was. 2020, there's a negative demand. So I'm not an economist, but I assume that that means that we want even less than is being produced. Maybe. If we were in class, I'd ask you how you would interpret that. In any case, it's below zero. So this is for reasons that might be obvious to you. So what do we use oil for primarily? Remember we talked about that in an earlier slide. We use it for transportation primarily. We are supposed to be staying at home. So we are not flying in planes. We are not driving our cars around, our diesel or our petroleum powered cars. So gasoline powered cars. So we've vastly reduced the demand for oil. Now the demand for all energy electricity isn't reduced as much as the demand for oil, right? So I wanted to mention here too that this isn't just a COVID-19 trend. The forecast demand for oil is to really increase next year as COVID-19 passes and people get out and about and start doing all the things they missed. But in the long term, it's going to decrease. So you can see in this quote here, this is from the International Energy Administration. It says the demand growth from gasoline and diesel between 2019 and 2025 is forecast to weaken as countries around the world implement policies to improve efficiency and cut carbon dioxide emissions, and as electric vehicles increase in popularity. The impact of energy transitions, that means from fossil fuels to renewable, on oil supply remains unclear, with many companies prioritizing short cycle projects for the coming years. Why did I put that last sentence in there? Many companies are prioritizing short cycle projects. They don't know when they're going to be forced to transition into renewables. So they're trying to push out projects that can happen quickly using the current fossil fuel infrastructure. But that's not a long-term view, right? They should be working now to transition to renewables so they don't get pushed off the edge of the cliff in 50 years. Okay, so that's all for the lecture today. I would have loved to do this lecture in class so I could hear your feedback and ideas on these trends. But for Wednesday, you don't have an additional reading as usual. Just make sure you get your presentation idea into me so that I can give you feedback as quickly as possible. And on Wednesday, we're going to discuss more of the Community Resilience Reader chapter that you read and your CPS responses. So make sure you go and watch the video with the National Geographic's tour of Germany's transition to renewables. And that is it till Wednesday. Okay, thank you all. I hope you have a great day. Hold on.